And Ron Paul, everybody's talking about Mitt Romney's the last man standing. The people who are Ron Paul fans and aficionados would beg to differ with you. Brian Doherty is the senior editor at Reason Magazine and Reason.com. He's the author of the new book, Ron Paul's Revolution, The Man and the Movement He Inspired. Reason.com, of course, the website. Brian, welcome to the program.
Tom, thank you so much for having me.
You're quite welcome. So, all these young people who want to have absolutely no social safety net for themselves. I don't think the average, for example, a member of my family right now has been diagnosed with leukemia, and he's going through just a brutal chemotherapy, and he's in his late 30s. He's on Social Security disability because he can't work. Mm-hmm. That is the social safety net. That's an insurance policy for people who are devastated. And Ron Paul thinks we should do away with that. And I don't understand that. It makes no sense to me. It seems excessively brutal. But anyhow, people who agree with Ron Paul on that my son-in-law should just go to hell and die, I guess, in the streets, are still gung-ho to move this Republican campaign forward, right?
Yes, they are. As I think you alluded to, there was an announcement at Paul's campaign that was misinterpreted as him dropping out. He is not dropping out. And in fact, he won his second state over the weekend since that alleged dropout announcement in Minnesota. That Libertarian wing, whether you agree with it or not, is definitely where the action is in the Republican Party, even though he was trounced in vote totals by Gingrich and Santorum, for example. He actually outraised them. He raised a little bit less than the two of them combined. His activists, as people have noted, are coming out in huge numbers. They're playing the caucus game very well. And I think what you're going to see is the Paul people playing the same role within the Republican Party moving forward as the Pat Robertson people did after 1988 in his failed presidential run. You had this minority within the party. It was a religious right then. It's the Libertarians now, who knew how to play the political game and really swing above their weight. And it's definitely an ongoing story. And to progressives, I think the most interesting lesson of the Paul movement, by the way, is that you can take the machinery of a major party, bring in a set of ideas that major party doesn't necessarily hang with very well, and move that party in your direction. And I think what progressives should learn most from the Paul movement is hope that there's a sort of a progressive Ron Paul who is able to do with the Democratic Party what Ron Paul did with the Republican Party, which is, be in the party but not necessarily of it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And in fact, I've been recommending for a long time that people check out, I think it was the Concord Coalition. I could be wrong, though, but it was one of these groups that was ultimately, I think, funded by the Koch brothers that for a year or so back in 2009, 2010, was aggressively telling libertarians and conservative Republicans to take over, to become precinct committee persons. Right. In the Republican Party, and thus and because those are the people who decide who gets to run in a primary. And so if you're going to have a primary with 4 Republican candidates and all 4 of them are libertarians, hey, you won no matter who wins.
And that's what the Paul people are doing. Like
that's exactly
Iowa
right.
and Alaska state parties already run by Paul. Nevada pretty much run by Paul, not Paul, but Paul people,
right.
Paul's fans. And I think that there's a great lesson. The big parties are sort of these sclerotic, oversized machines, but a small, dedicated, and ideologically motivated. That's the important part. I know, Tom, that you don't agree with Paul's radical ideology, but I think it's a great example that a radical ideology energizes people in a way that sort of bland centrism, whether it be the Romney variety or the Obama variety, as I see it, way more than they can do. And
I absolutely agree, and can identify with that. I mean,
Sure.
When I was 13 years old, I went with my dad, who was a Republican activist at that time, although albeit an Eisenhower Republican. I went door to door with my dad for Barry Goldwater. And Barry Goldwater was our guy. He was going to stop the communists from killing us. Yeah. And I had read John Starmer's book, None Dare Call It Treason, and I knew that the State Department was filled with communists, and I knew that they were coming to get us. I mean, you're 13 years old, you buy this stuff hook, line, and sinker. What I don't get is why. Maybe it's because 40 is the new 20, and maybe 30 is the new 13. Because I don't get why adults would buy into this.
Well, to go back to the safety net stuff that you started with, the full actuation of Paul's libertarian vision, of course, does not have room for a federally run social safety net. But if you listen to Paul on the campaign trail a lot, which I had to do in writing my book, the way Paul is selling his vision is very much, I think, designed in ways to appeal to progressives. Because when he talks about shrinking government, he definitely says that the stuff that actually directly helps people is way down on his list. He wants to stop the wars. He wants to stop the drug wars. He wants to stop crony corporate capitalism. He wants to stop most of the things he talks about wanting to stop first are the same things that a progressive can agree with.
Well, and not just progressives.
That's why he
most Americans
across the line. Yeah.
I mean, it's not just progressives. It's the majority of Americans.
Like taking things, health care for children or things that help the aged, like talking about cutting that stuff first is foolish. That's not what you do.
So. But just because the guy whose ultimate goal is to sell your kids heroin is giving them candy to start out with, do you really?
His goal is to allow you to not be thrown in jail for selling something people want. You know how awful.
That's what I'm talking about. That's the candy.
Don't you?
That's the candy.
Don't you?
This is. I agree.
That's not the candy. That's the reality.
No, that's the candy. That's the stuff that people want. What people want is, I refer to libertarians as Republicans who want to get laid and smoke dope, and or vice versa, who want to smoke dope and get laid, and because they want to decriminalize prostitution and pot, and all drugs for that matter. And I have no problem with. In fact, I'm an advocate of decriminalizing prostitution and pot. I think that's absurd that they're both illegal. But and frankly, most Americans do as well, or at least pot. And I don't know that there's been any national surveys on prostitution recently. But all that said, what Ron Paul, as you correctly point out, what he's saying is stuff that not only do progressives agree with, the vast majority of Americans agree with. The vast majority of Americans think, this study just came out today, 56% of Americans, are supportive of gay marriage. 58% of Americans now think pot should be decriminalized and regulated like alcohol or tobacco. I mean, it's just remarkable how these are mainstream positions. But that doesn't disguise the fact, or maybe it does for most people, but for me it doesn't, the fact that after he's done giving you the candy, the easies, the sweet stuff that everybody agrees on, he wants to sell you heroin. He wants to he wants to say to you that if you're 30, 35 years old and you get leukemia and you're going down in flames, you're not going to get any Social Security benefits. Sorry, you're on your own, buddy.
What Paul is pointing out is that the promises that the American government has made, it is already impossible for it to keep up.
But that's not true.
Make all these
that's a lie.
Promises. It's not a lie.
That is a bald-faced lie.
It is not a lie.
It is only not a lie if you assume that the Republicans control Congress and specifically the House of Representatives.
Assume that the rest of the world is going to keep buying our debt when it's completely clear that there's no.
Well, I know that's been the Republican strategy is to run up all this debt. That's Republicans ran up $10 trillion in debt doing this. Right. But the fact of the matter is that a lot of it is actually most of it is held by Americans, not foreigners. But setting all that aside, if you want, actually, we're out of time, so I'll leave you with the last word, Brian.
Get behind the only candidate who actually wants to do all the things you say want done because you're afraid you're going to lose these benefits that the government can't afford in the long run anyway.
Sweet, Brian. Well, I think I've made my point well enough that I need not rebut that. I'll just leave you with the last word. Brian Doherty, Reason.com, the website. Ron Paul's Revolution is the book. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Tom.